conclude that uh, I am based currently in Dubai. I've been in the region for almost 30 years. My association has been primarily with IT services and IT companies. The companies being HCL Perro Systems, which became Perro Systems, and then Perro got acquired by Dell Application Services, and so on and so forth. So these have been a few of my, I would say, ports where I have worked and learned from professionals like yours, and then from companies who have really brought value to the market. And I have been very privileged of working alongside the Indian IT industry as we have built global market presence from the grounds up. So I remember in 2002, the opportunity was given to me by Perro Systems to start the operations here in Dubai for their regional presence. And right from working on enterprise strategy, sales, and complex application services catering primarily to Middle East and then to US as well. That has been my background. Uh, well, we have seen many changes, and change has been always a constant when we talk about IT industry. And we have seen what's happening recently in terms of AI. Much before that, low code, no code revolution. In fact, I remember vividly doing a very large project for Saudi Railways, when low code, no code was the flavor of the season. That was around 2.5 years back. And then personally, I've been also involved as a founder to a data analytics company called D4 Analytics, where our journey in 2017 was primarily from descriptive analytics to predictive and prescriptive analytics. And that too also focused on various verticals. But then see how fast the technology has evolved around AI. I vividly remember at that time we used to introduce ourselves saying that we have three pillars of offerings. One is consulting, second, solutions on prescriptive and predictive analytics, third being knowledge or coaching on AI, and that too vertical based. And the fourth one, which we used to introduce ourselves as a utopian dream, that when we will have enough data, we will be able to offer a service where, let's say, a oil and gas company could, various oil and gas companies could get into that service and then find the best way to use the asset which they have invested into. And then look how fast the technology has evolved in those 8, 9 years. And that is what we were talking at that time as a utopian dream. But today, that dream is all in front of us. Yeah. So, over the last 3 decades in IT, we have weathered constant changes from mainframes to client server, on prem to cloud, monolithic code bases to microservices. But our march towards 2030 isn't just another upgrade cycle. And that's is making us restless, all of us. It is a fundamental rewriting of the contract between the technology professionals like you and me and enterprise leadership, which pays to have us on their side. The era where technical execution alone guaranteed high compensation, upward mobility, I believe is perhaps coming to an end till the time if we don't change our ways of doing things. And today we aren't talking about how to survive the next corporate restructuring. That's not the talk. We are visiting a framework by virtue of this particular presentation, which has been drafted for seasoned IT professional to do a transition from execution focused leaders into being an indispensable business critical strategist. And that's what the business houses expect us to be. Now, since we all are well versed with the growth of Indian IT industries, and then most of us, perhaps today on this forums, are Indian IT professionals, I would be primarily addressing the challenges, at the same time, the opportunities that lie ahead of us in this particular AI first world. So, uh, moving on and having a feeling of deja vu whenever I read Roy Amara, this name must be very, very familiar to all of you as well, where uh, he was the former president of Institute for the Future. He gave us the law which has defined technology shifts across generations, and which said we tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate the effect of the same technology in the long run. And if you remember e-commerce, times of 2000, when everyone was somehow on this particular bandwagon, anyone puts .com behind their company name was expected to deliver the value, but that value never came because everyone was expecting that value to be delivered in 1, 2, 3, 4 years. But has that value come to all of us in 20, 25 years? Absolutely. I mean, if you look around, we find that perhaps we cannot live without e-commerce, services. And I believe today it's happening all over again with AI. So, to begin with, examine the micro situation and the macro disruptions that are forcing the evolution of AI. So, what I have done for this, just taken a step back to understand where we are going. Let's examine where we are coming from. You know, so for decades, the Indian IT ecosystem operated on an efficient, high volume execution engine. Its core value proposition was anchored in operational labor, extensive documentation, manual testing, BPO services, commodity software development, or implementation of package solutions. Those were our core value which we brought to the rest of the world. Engineering teams were structured to execute predefined requirements, efforts tasks for global enterprises, and that too in large scale. I believe that large scale, which we usually do not give much value to, is also something which brought us where we are today. I will give you an example. While working for Pero Systems here in the region, I had a chance of taking the leadership team of Emirates Airlines. And by the time Pero System had been acquired by Dell, and Dell had a development center in Cyberjaya in Malaysia. So we wanted to have certain developers come to on site here and do some work for Emirates Airlines. Mercator was their development arm, and we were not able to convince people to come at that point in time to here because the opportunities within Dell and all was to move to US and elsewhere. So we thought of going to Cyberjaya, Malaysia, and look at what they had to offer. So while the city itself is beautiful, whatever they have done as a Malaysian government, they have really nurtured the ecosystem, built the ecosystem, and people are hungry, but into terms of getting more exposure, getting more experiences. What we realized over there that Malaysia at that point in time was coming up with only 80,000 graduates every year, and out of which only 20,000 graduates were getting into IT as a career. And those 20,000 professionals used to get consumed in the thriving economy of Malaysia itself. So there was absolutely no scale what they could offer. But compare it with us in India, we are today 6 million IT professionals who are not providing only services from Indian shores but across the globe because we had the scale. And while the scale and cost efficiency model built a massive foundation for us, it operated primarily as a service delivery mechanism rather than a driver of core architecture or product ownership. So, but today, AI has drastically changed that equation. Repeatable, effort driven work is being automated overnight. Competing on headcount or cost alone is no longer a viable strategy. And if it is not no longer a viable strategy for the companies, it's no longer a viable strategy for you and me which I mean the IT fraternity we belong to. So that's the present for us, you know. However, is all gloom and doom? Uh, Not at all, if you look at it. Why? Because whenever a new technology hits, the industry gets locked in the same debate. You know, who has the biggest chip? Who owns the cloud infrastructure? Who trains the largest frontier model? We have all had this argument before, just with different nouns. You know, with mainframes, it was big iron. With internet, it was fiber pipes. With cloud, it was data center. But owning the infrastructure has never been the true long-term moat for any technology. The real money and the lasting impact always flows in whosoever figures out what to do with it. And since we knew something right about this, last year also, or till last year, if you look at it, the Indian IT shores have seen around more than 2,000 GCCs, bringing around $98 billion worth of business. The business which usually used to go to our IT services companies like TCS and all. But now, having had experience with us for 2 decades or 3 decades, the companies themselves, the global companies themselves, have started opening their GCCs in India since 2021. However, 50% of them came with AI first approach. So if I look back in 2002, while I was in JITEX in Dubai, I remember listening to a fireside talk show by Dr. Fakir Chand Kohli, FC Kohli. People who are from the IT industry may recall is also known as the father of the Indian software industry. He was the first CEO of TCS. At that time, the Indian IT was doing a revenue of around $16 billion, out of which around 14 billion came from software services. Dr. Kohli predicted that we would hit 100 billion in 10 years, anticipating a 50-50 split between software and hardware. We did hit 100 billion in 10 years, even though our hardware share remained negligible. Nobody told Indian IT companies then that we couldn't build a massive global industry just because we were not a IBM or Oracle. So, if you look at it, today, effort-driven headcount model is indeed under pressure, no doubt about that. However, with a 300 billion Indian IT sector and over 2,000 GCCs in India generating $100 billion, the paradigm has shifted. And as highlighted in recent BCG report also, we need to and are moving rapidly to effort-based execution to outcome-linked platform-supported intelligence. The work that is repeatable will be automated. The future indeed belongs to domain-led architecture, AI deployment, and enterprise value ownership.